board at 6:02. Meeting's called to order at 6:02.
Thank you. And the first item of business, we're going to jump past public comment and on items to be added to the agenda, just as a heads up, we are going to add under new business a discussion about setting a time for the Working Waterfront Work Group to present to the board. We also were going to add to the organization of the board, with the board's permission to sign warrants outside of a select board meeting. And later on, as we get to appointments, we will be adding the annual appointments of the reappointments of the CEO, Shellfish Warden, Emergency Management Director, and Harbor Master.
What about the fire department, fire chief?
My understanding is that the fire department sends a letter that we respond to in
Okay,
talking to Mary.
Yeah.
okay,
Normally, the board of directors of the fire department sends the select board a note that says, we recommend you appoint Brian Whalen as the fire chief. At this point, I think it's just, what do I want to say, semantics or something.
Yeah,
I know that
because-
they did it.
And isn't it, and in this, when we hit the next fiscal year, next week, won't he be a salaried employee at that
He
point
is,
too?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, great.
Yes. So are we good with those additions to the agenda?
they all sound
Yes.
necessary.
Absolutely. So without any objection, the first item of business would be the election of a chair for the ensuing year.
I move to nominate Bronwyn Tudor as the chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you,
Oh.
Ari. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate your
Thank you.
trust. And I hope we can make it work out.
Okay, all those in favor, I'll call it Bronwyn since it's about
Thanks.
you.
And
Me
I'm
too.
seeing
Okay.
3-0, it is unanimous. The best way to start a new board is a unanimous vote.
Yes.
The next item would be setting of the meeting schedule for the ensuing year. We have been meeting on the second and fourth Tuesdays for a long time now. Mary did inform me that in the past, years ago, there was a Wednesday earlier in the day, but that was well before my time, so.
Well, I wouldn't wanna, because of my work schedule, I probably couldn't do earlier than, 5 or 6. I could do 5, I think, most especially since, now we have remote status in the world, hybrid status, so, with enough planning, we could do that. But, we've been doing it Tuesday, Thursday, so I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think we should stick with Tuesday, the first and the second and the fourth, if
Mhm,
only because all the other committees have formed their schedules around that.
exactly.
And it
Right.
doesn't make sense to shift it around. I do think the time is a question. Obviously, we've done recently 6. Prior to that, we did 7. We could never do 5 because John's schedule didn't permit it. And in addition to
Maybe we could do 5.
getting a consensus, for those of us,
Hang on.
thanks, a consensus among the board members, I'm wondering if we want to at least give the regular attendees an opportunity to choose or to indicate a preference, because we would like to have the maximum amount of public participation possible. And I don't think we've really tracked any difference between how many people came at 7, how many people came at 6. And I have no idea what that would be if we opened it up to 5. So,
Okay, well, my preference would be to go earlier than later, just because one, if for the long meetings, it's not, to have to get up the next morning for Tyler to stay later, and then be back here. That would be one of my main concerns, is to not keep him, till 9 o'clock when we have long meetings. And selfishly, I would also, like to be able to not be done at 9 or 8:30, because I do have a child that I'd like to try to accommodate when I can, obviously. I'm willing to look at 5, absolutely. My preference would be 5 before 7. I don't know how you feel.
I like 6 o'clock.
I like
think
6 too.
It's what has been done and it's been working, so we could stick with it if it's okay with you. It seems like it would be
6 o'clock works for me. I do like having a little bit of transition from the end of the day to get this room set up.
Yeah,
I prefer not 7, just because the reasons listed. And I do think I would be curious, as Bronwyn's point, if we did go to 5, if our regular attendees that we do have
Yeah.
a quite steady crew of folks that watch these meetings quite religiously, and I'd like to just make sure that we don't lose folks.
I think
and
that,
I'm not.
I would propose that we stick with 6 o'clock for the immediate future. And we put out some kind of an inquiry to people who are interested in participating in these meetings as to whether 5 o'clock would be preferable or not. That would be,
So Bronwyn moved
because 6 o'clock is smack dab in the middle of
Right in the
most
middle.
people's dinner hour of some sort, whether they're chasing kids around the room or sitting down or cooking.
So I
Okay.
believe Bronwyn moved 6.
I would second that.
All right.
All those in favor, right?
And that looks like a unanimous vote. The next item on the organization of the board is tackling the liaisons for various for the town and committees, town departments and committees. And so I had sent along a tracker that we used previously, updated the working waterfront work group to be included. Do we want to just start at the top and work our way down?
Let's do it.
So for personnel,
I'd like to keep personnel. There are some unfinished things I'd like to follow up on.
all right.
And unless anyone objects, I'll keep legal. And along with that, I'll keep Board of Appeals because they do tend to go together.
All right. Was there any thoughts on the fire department? Mary had been serving as the liaison, though I believe there was some desire to potentially give Mary a little more, one less meeting a week.
Yeah, and tell me, I'm willing to do that. We haven't had a chance to talk about that, or
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think what we have to figure out is, remind me. I think their meetings are on Mondays, and is it
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock on Mondays?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which month?
I think
Is
it
it
winds
one
up being
Monday a
like,
month?
I think it's, yeah, there's one Monday a month that, they have their, their normal business meeting. That sometimes changes, it used to be the second, but recently it's been the third, so, I think a lot has to do with training schedules, things like that.
Right, of course.
Cause they also bring people in to do training,
Right, of
so,
course.
yeah, so sometimes that shifts, but it's usually
Yeah.
the second or third Monday. I don't believe it's ever been the first Monday that I can recall, so,
Okay, yeah, because the first Monday would conflict with conservation.
right,
So,
right.
let's.
I would be okay with it too.
Okay.
If we all wanted to take one each for these top,
Okay.
why are
Okay.
these separate than the bottom?
Because up top, personnel, legal, and the fire department are kind of town departments of sorts, whereas the others are committees.
Okay, got it. Do you want me to take that?
Sure, if
Would you
you'd like to
like
take
it?
that, yeah, it doesn't, I mean, either one, I can, yeah, why don't we say you for now, and if we have to swap it out a little bit as we horse trade
Yeah.
these, we'll do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Do you like
And I-
horses?
Oh, horses are okay.
I love horses, so,
Me too.
yeah,
And,
and
I
trucks.
mean, it's pretty likely that I'll still go to the fire department meetings because I gather a lot of information there.
Yes,
Yeah.
And Brian and I have worked very
Right.
closely for the last, so I don't think that itself is gonna change.
Yeah.
right,
So,
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
good, thank you.
Well, look at that, one each. And so now as we get to the committee liaisons, I see that Aria had said Board of Appeals
Yeah.
because
unless-
it meets so much.
It means so much, well, that's why I think Katie should have cemetery district, but we'll see if Brian wants to fight her for it.
No, I think that it's important, two things are important, to keep the Board of Appeals separate from the planning board people.
Oh, right. okay,
Right.
yeah.
So
So, okay,
you
so we
wouldn't
need
want to
to-
do appeals and planning board. And it makes sense to have our legal expert on that, because it's always something legal. I mean, that's what they're appealing. It's our
Yeah,
decision what
makes
happens next. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Um,
good, and it doesn't really count as a regular meeting because they only meet in crisis.
and so, yeah, so Katie, I'm totally fine if we decide we need to switch that up because you're getting overloaded. let's just for now pencil that in, that I'll keep it, but
The
I'm not-
appeals.
yeah, the appeals, just, I've been a member and then I was the liaison before, but that doesn't mean I have to keep it.
Yeah.
If you're feeling overwhelmed or like you've got committees you don't feel like you wanna have, so
Okay,
for now, we can pencil it in and just
All
keep
right.
going, how about that?
And so cemetery district trustees, I heard Katie was,
I don't
you
know.
want me to take that?
Well,
Sure.
that doesn't meet that much, does
It's
it?
once a year. I
No,
haven't
they
known you.
usually meet once a year. They've been meeting, you know, if they've got projects going on, they might meet more than that.
Yeah.
But normally it's usually about once a year and it's usually in March. They just
Can
have their
handle that.
annual,
Okay.
Yeah,
annual trustee meeting.
okay,
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
and
And
I
that's
do
actually,
know,
Mary and the town clerk, the treasurer and the town clerk are on that board are on the board of trustees in any case.
Right,
So
okay.
they not only participate, but have a vote.
Correct.
and what were we thinking on Conservation Commission? I know Bronwyn has held that seat historically.
Well, historically, for a few years, but I would like to hand it over. I was hoping that Katie might be interested in that. It's a Monday once a month. They're a very active committee, but they're very self-propelled, and they presently are or a subset of that committee is overseeing a grant for hydrology, a hydrology study jointly with the town of Arousek. Is that something that sounds of interest?
That's been the first Monday of the month and they do it fully by Zoom. It's a good group. I used to be on
Okay.
it as well, so.
Okay, yeah, it looks like a great group of people.
So that, the only question there would be to make certain, and it doesn't sound like it conflicts with the,
I don't
fire
cook with
department.
time.
Right. Yeah, if fire department is second or third
Right,
Monday and
then,
they're
right,
first.
yeah,
then
so
it
if they
would
keep
work.
their same meeting schedule, you should be all set. Conservation, I mean, Jess Weller's the, chair, so
Mhm.
So,
I don't know.
And
so
they're
we're thinking
presently
Katie for
meeting, they're
conservation?
presently meeting at 6. They used to meet at 7. And I don't know that they're totally happy with 6. They may change again.
I will take that.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, for now, we'll see how it all
Yeah,
shakes out.
We'll
Yeah.
vote on the full slate at the end, so
Yeah.
there's still time to swap a few.
Yeah,
In regards to Financial Advisory Committee, historically, the full select board has been liaisons.
Yep.
Is there any desire to have a point person from the select board on
I'd-
that? I know
I'd-
Mary is finance director,
Tyler.
also always attends. Yep.
Tyler, I think this is the moment for me to say that I don't think it works to have the whole board responsible for any of these committees. And I would say that in reference to the school committee as well, because that's previously how it was officially set up. So, and I would be happy to take the Financial Advisory Committee.
All right. Are we
And of
good with
course-
that?
Their
Mhm.
schedule's irregular, but
Yeah, they only meet pretty much, you know, December to May.
Yeah,
And the Harbor Committee is up next.
I can keep them. You know, again, I can keep them unless somebody is dying to have them, or we can swap out.
with the working waterfront being
Yep.
your
Yeah.
thing, maybe it makes sense for you to have that.
Yeah, and I was thinking, unless again, somebody wants to take it, Shellfish probably goes along with working waterfront as well.
Mhm.
All right. And what about the planning board?
Trio.
Let's come back to the planning board. Let's do that last, cause that, remind me when they meet, cause
Wednesdays,
Is it in
twice
the
a month.
afternoon?
First and third.
evening.
In the evening, okay, then
Seven,
I'm
yeah.
wrong. Okay. So we just need to, I think we need to come back to that one and look at how many everybody's got to make sure that it's
Recreation?
equitable. I can keep recreation unless Katie wants it. But
Sounds
I,
fun.
it is fun. But I do think you should do school. How do you?
I would
since-
like to do school.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
You've been on the school committee before, so that makes sense to me.
So
too.
we're thinking Katie at school, and are we thinking Aria
Aria.
at rec, or did Bronwyn want to
Yeah.
do rec, or?
no, I do not. Terry has chatted in that the planning board meets the first and the third Wednesday at 7.
At 7, okay. And is it a
it's-
hybrid meeting?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
Is school committee second Wednesday?
School committee is actually, you're right, I think it's the third
It's
Wednesday.
Third Wednesday now, I think you're right. Was it just?
School
not last-
committee. Yeah, school committee is the third Wednesday of the month.
Who's that talking? Oh my gosh, that's Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
didn't
Yeah,
recognize
yeah.
yours.
Third Wednesdays,
Okay.
okay, at 7.
All right, so then that does, potentially then put me at
School-
planning, but then I've got Board of Appeals.
the,
Ouch. Let's keep going. What else?
Let's
Whatever.
keep going.
what else
So-
is out?
Okay, so school committee was Katie at this stage, Aria was Shellfish,
Yep,
solid waste management committee,
I'll keep that.
all right? And
And
what
I'll
about the
take the TOPMB.
all right,
I feel like we're
Former
playing.
chair. former chair of the TOPNB and now chair of the select board. Liaison, it all works. And the Working Waterfront Work Group.
I'll keep that. I think, obviously we'll see how much, right now it's at a point where the work is done, but that's just to get us to the next level, which is presentation to the select board and going from there to see what steps are next.
So in terms of revisiting, that leaves the planning board.
And what are we looking at? How many does each person have? Just remind us again, I just think,
I'm seeing Bronwyn with 4 that meet pretty regular, well, personnel +3. Aria's at legal and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Katie is at the volunteer fire department and 1, 2, 3.
one of mine doesn't meet very often, right? Board of Appeals. So if
Right.
you'd say one legal +4 that, meet more so.
And Shellfish and Harbor meet
Yeah.
part of the
right.
year and
Yeah,
then.
right,
Sporadically,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so, all right, so we've got planning board, which currently would, at least one of their meetings conflict with the school board.
It might not if school committee starts
Or
at 5.
That's right. School does start at 5, but that's a
It's a
long
tight-
Wednesday for you.
Yeah,
Um,
and school committee can often run through 7.
I know. And have we ever, okay, so there's no school committee meeting in July or August as of right now, so it's September. Have we, is there not a way to share a committee? I mean, the planning board, is a twice monthly, that's a lot of work. Is there any
I
reason?
think you'd wanna probably have a consistent person, just
Sure.
because some of the projects take a couple of meetings to work through at times, and swapping folks out might get difficult. But I am not the resident expert on the planning board, that's more of a, I'd say Bob kind of question.
Yeah, it's
I
1 to
think in
1.5
general-
hours.
I think in general, it makes sense to have a consistent presence because you understand the issues that the committee is dealing with,
Right.
whichever committee, or the projects that they're working on. There are 2 aspects of conflict here. There's Wednesday night for the school board and planning board, and then there's the planning board and the Board of Appeals.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I suppose I could take the Board of Appeals.
mm-hmm. Yep,
I could let go of school committee and take planning board, and you could stay with school committee.
that's fine. I just don't know how you really feel about planning board, though. I mean, is that gonna be too much
I
of your
think there's a
time?
learning curve that I'll have to kind of dig into.
Yeah.
And give some effort, but I'm interested in it. I
Okay.
think it could be cool to
Okay.
learn. I would be more comfortable with the school committee.
Right,
But that's okay if I'm not comfortable. I can just try to figure it
think in-
out.
Katie, I think in a lot of ways, the planning board is a great introduction to town government because a lot of what they consider and write about involves state statutes and coming into compliance with them and things that residents in town are applying to do, permits for this and that and the other thing. Plus,
Right.
right now, they're working on the whole issue of short-term rentals.
it might be a nice dovetail with conservation. Would you like me to take conservation? Would that make it less, why don't, I mean, is there, why
So-
couldn't you keep school board? I'll take conservation. You could take the school committee. I can take conservation and then. Well, I don't know.
Planning.
And then
I
planning.
take planning
Yeah,
and school.
yeah,
That's a real, that stacked Wednesday was the problem.
that's right.
Um. But we could get through July and August with no school committee,
Right,
see how
It goes.
things settle,
Right.
and then we could reassess after August.
yeah. Yeah,
One thing is, I am going to miss the first planning board meeting because I'm going to be in Europe next
Yes.
week. And they have a meeting, I think, on the first,
Okay.
July 1st. But,
So we're thinking.
Well, that
Katie-
inevitably happens from time
Yeah.
to time. And in the
Yeah.
summer, everybody's gone at some point.
okay,
Um,
it'll be 1 a.m. where I am when they meet, so I thought
Yeah.
it was probably not something I'd even wanna zoom in on.
yeah. Okay,
So we're thinking, are you gonna take conservation? Or are you gonna
with
keep?
that, I can take conservation
Yeah.
if that would make it, cause then otherwise she's got a lot. I don't know.
A few big ones,
So
yeah.
do you want me to run down through the list then
Yeah.
and see where we're at? Personnel is Bronwyn, legal is Aria, fire department is Katie, Board of Appeals is still Aria, cemetery trustees is Katie, conservation is Aria, FAC is Bronwyn, harbor is Aria, Katie is planning board, recreation is Aria, school committee is Katie, shellfish is Aria, Bronwyn takes solid waste and TOPMB, and Aria is still with the working waterfront work group.
It's a lot of Aria.
Well, some of those
Like every
committees,
other.
some of
Well,
those committees
that's
do not meet all the
That's
time.
okay.
I mean, the
Yeah, I
harbor
think I'm-
committee has
Yeah.
about 6 meetings a year. The Shellfish Commission, I think, meets regularly, but many of their meetings are perfunctory. So it's not
So I-
as, it's not as unequal as it sounds, really.
Okay.
So
So are we good with that slate?
how are you feeling about that, though?
Well, you took conservation,
Yeah,
which took some off of my plate.
right, it's just
You
the
mean planning
Wednesdays.
board?
Yeah,
I'm good with it.
okay.
Yeah.
alright, Okay, all right. Let's try this. Let's try this out.
So is there a motion for the slate?
I move the slate.
Second,
Seconded by Bronwyn. Any further discussion?
I'm still getting to know her, so I'm just making sure that she's not overloaded and what I'm not seeing yeah, but
well,
let's
she
try
can
this,
come,
you know?
she can come back and say
Right,
that
Yeah, we
it's
can
too
always
much.
come back to the slate,
Right,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
All right,
It's always up for reconsideration.
Okay.
are we taking a vote?
Yes. All
Okay.
those in favor?
And I am seeing unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item on the
Good.
organization of the board was the appointment, rather the affirmation of our policies. There's a financial controls policy, the personnel policy, and the remote meeting policy. And historically, at the beginning of the year, we affirm the policies to keep them carrying forward. And if we wanted to have revisions, changes, tweaks, we can schedule a workshop sometime in the summer anyway to get everyone up to speed.
Okay, so,
I read it over and it seems, well, the personnel policy and the internal policy I read over. And I feel like I don't know enough to know what would need to be changed.
Right.
there are some changes in the personnel policies that need to be made, from my perspective, and one of them is in the non-discrimination. It doesn't quite comply with the Maine Human Rights Act, so we need to update that language. But for now, so that we have an effective personnel policy, I think it makes sense for us to go ahead and affirm these and then look at what needs immediate attention. And obviously, Bronwyn will take the lead on that because she's personnel. How does that sound to you, Bronwyn?
That sounds good. And if you then, I think, everybody review all the policies as they come before you. And if you have comments or questions, them prior to a meeting. Don't wait to bring them up at the meeting so that we know what it is we need to address. Okay,
And
Good.
if Ari is, the good personnel person, can you look at that policy and make suggestions to it?
Yes,
Absolutely, yeah.
of course, I'll be talking with Bronwyn because she's gonna keep personnel, but
Right.
just, and I know we have some other resources that can be relied on internally too. And in the community for volunteers. So, it's just one thing that I noticed and I wanna make sure we're in compliance with that. That's all.
And we know we have to update that. We've had to update it for a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Some things are not even there yet.
Yes, yes.
So that. should be-
Tyler. Does this list of policies include the remote meeting
Yes,
Yeah.
policy? Okay,
which we are actively in the middle of, which is why I want to make sure we affirm it.
Right.
absolutely. We use it all the time. So I'd like to move that we affirm the existing policies and consider any necessary revisions at a future meeting.
Second,
Any further discussion?
you want me to say it? All those in favor? Since I'm in the room, Bronwyn, I'm just gonna say that on your behalf, okay?
Thank
And
you,
the
But we have to work that out, so I'm actually doing the
Yes,
stuff
you do.
I'm supposed to do.
Yes,
Tyler,
okay.
we're about 25 minutes late for the hearing we're
We've
supposed
got-
to have.
We've got one more thing under organization, which is a motion for permission to sign warrants outside the meeting.
I'd move to grant the select board as an entity permission to sign warrants outside of a meeting.
I will
Absolutely.
second that.
And I actually would like to amend my motion. If it's possible, I'd like for us to be able to, and I don't know that it is, to sign the warrant electronically with DocuSign or any kind of PDF program software that y'all have. If that's not possible, given the way that the warrant is,
Right.
then that's fine.
Well, I mean, the school does that
Oh,
and they stand there and scan in 175 pages.
No.
I'm really not
Okay.
interested, I gotta say.
That's what I need
And
to
you
hear.
know, like I
That's
told
a
Tyler,
start,
I will, I'm happy to, yes,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one.
Yeah, that's what I said. If it's not,
Yeah, it's just,
if it's not feasible, then I don't wanna do that. I don't want you doing that either.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm, normally, if Kathy's, I've been training Kathy.
Yeah.
So normally it's done for your meeting. If you
Right.
have a meeting on a warrant time, it's done for that meeting.
Right.
On a warrant week, it's done for that meeting. And as I explained, I have no problem with taking it right down to Bronwyn and sitting right down at her
Yeah.
kitchen table and going over it with her.
Sure.
So, that's one signature. Normally, the warrant, just for the record, the warrant, is a majority.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily have to have a third select board there.
Mhm.
We've always been of the consideration that one of the two signatures on it should be the chair,
Mhm.
as the responsible party.
Mhm.
So, but again, I mean, I know what you're saying, but.
Yeah, no, if it's if it's not already digital.
Yeah.
If most of those documents aren't already
No.
digital and it could be quickly built into a
Right.
PDF, I don't want you doing it either.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
So I will not amend my motion. I move that the select board as an entity be able to sign the warrant outside of a meeting as necessary. You second.
And Katie, any further discussion? All in,
All those in favor?
perfect. And at this stage, I would turn this back over to the chair of the board to give us public comment, then go into our public hearing, which people could make 2 comments if they wanted to, but be kind of redundant.
Okay, so let's do the public comment first. Are there any public comments from members of the public who are present? I don't see any from here, Tyler, but I
None
can't,
in the room.
I can't spell 12. It says there are 12 participants. but I
No
don't see-
hands up, Bronwyn.
Okay, moving forward then. I declare the public hearing on the fee schedule for the town of Georgetown for 2025-26 open. Are there any comments about that? And I would note that there are no changes to this fee schedule from the one that we previously voted on in March. But we had agreed that we would affirm or review the schedule at the beginning of every new fiscal year. At the end of town meeting, in other words. So that's why it's on the agenda. Any comments from board members?
Nope.
No,
Okay. Are we good with no public comment?
I see none.
Okay, then I declare the hearing closed.
Thank you, Bronwyn, and we will get back to that item to formally approve it under new business. So the next item up on the agenda is the minutes of the June 10th meeting for review and approval. And just as a practice, typically a board member who is not present at a meeting as a board member would abstain, just
Okay.
for what that's worth.
Yeah.
I'd move to approve the minutes of the May, what was that? Excuse me, of the June
10th.
10th meeting. We're in June, Aria, not May.
And Bronwyn
Second.
seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor? You and
I
me.
see two.
Can I vote?
You
You
do.
Were you there?
can, or you could abstain. I mean, technically, we can never tell you you can't vote. Practice historically is somebody who's not at a meeting abstains.
Okay, I will abstain.
2-0 to 1 abstention. All right, and digitally, we provided the May financials as well as, I believe, the hauling numbers got sent out by Mary for review. Under assessing items, I have spoken with our assessing agent, Bill Van Tynen, and we recommend moving the prior Seguinland LLC abatement on to Bill Van Tynen for a site visit and further review.
And I'd move to, I'd move that we do propose or send along to Bill Van Tynen the prior Seguinland LLC abatement request.
Thank you.
For his recommendation. You send it
Yes.
to him for his recommendation, right?
Yes.
For his recommendation, yes.
Is there a
Second,
second? Bronwyn seconds.
no discussion, okay, and those in favor?
Perfect. Thank you very much. I did want to update the board as well. Tomorrow, the County Board of Assessment Review will be taking up the only appeal to date we've had on any of our abatements on the Sideman Ledges properties. We had 8 abatements before us. The Sidemans had chosen to appeal 3 of those properties. It has been a very quick turnaround with Bill Van Tynen getting down here on site in the rain for a site visit that we did last week. And effectively, it is Bill's opinion, coupled with our ordinance, that the shoreland zoning ordinance, that he will be recommending an abatement tomorrow rather than a denial of it. He does feel that lack of buildability really does need some kind of accurate reflection. So we ultimately will see how the Board of Assessment Review tackles. This is the first one they've had in a few years, so it will be a good process. But I just wanted to share that
Yeah, go ahead.
we are headed that way tomorrow.
So a couple of things, as I recall, and I think this is true, but you're gonna confirm it, please. Bill did not assess any of the Sidemans
No.
ledges, right? Okay. And then, so his first on-site for this property was last week, as you say, okay. So
Oh,
that's how,
In 2003,
okay,
the last door-to-door reval Bill was involved in, but in terms of revisiting that site since then, this was the first visit. And really, there's another piece of our ordinance that I think will be an interesting discussion tomorrow. If we remember, we had discussed it would behoove folks of Sideman Ledges to potentially merge their
Right,
lots
yeah.
for a benefit.
yes,
For lots that are non-conforming in the shoreland zone, our ordinance uses the word shall versus may on mergers.
right,
So this year, because they were assessed separately and not previously merged, the abatements are gonna be a little bit wonky to get to a final conclusion on what Bill's recommended reduction is. But part of his recommendation will be merging some of those lots because our ordinance is very clear that we have to, because they are non-conforming, owned by the same entity and abutting. And so we'd kind of been operating on the pretense it was more of a may.
right,
It had happened in the past, but it hasn't been done recently. But when that property did get purchased, all 8 lots historically had been multiple people, brothers, sisters, family members. When it became the one entity, it did trigger that clause. So we will be working with Bill through that process. Again, it's a very not new to Georgetown, but new in the sense we haven't done it in years.
So we'll have to give, obviously, the owners notice
Yeah,
to have them come into compliance with our ordinance on the shall.
in regards to the shall, and I'm gonna be working with Bill through that. Again,
Yeah.
this has been a whirlwind
Right, sure.
week and a half with
Yeah.
Bill. I know that we will definitely be giving notice.
Yeah.
But there were certain things that I know in the past, folks had been a little bit hesitant on merging those lots.
Right,
And our hands are gonna be tied.
I know,
Though we will ultimately wanna check in with legal counsel when we
Right.
get to that stage.
right,
We're not there yet, but I did want to
Yeah.
advise that it is coming. And Bill is looking at for future factoring when we deal with assessments later this summer ahead of commitment. Areas specifically that are bluff zones in town, which is really what triggers
yeah,
some of that steep shoreland reduction. He does think a handful of properties around town may be impacted, but he wants to dive in and do more work. So really just sharing that this has been an ongoing discussion, and I look forward to the hearing and site visit tomorrow.
and so the hearing is tomorrow. Have we already notified the Sidemans of of our updated, recommendation from Bill?
We have not, the Sidemans will hear tomorrow from Bill when we get there. So
Okay.
Bill, I know, finished his recommendation on Monday. There was a considerable amount of work over the weekend that was undertaken. So, but the Sidemans were notified by the county, the hearing is going on. I imagine they will be in person.
Right,
And, we will go from there. The site visit is at 10 a.m. I will be gone for the bulk of the day with that and to the county for the hearing after. In the event that they have the hearing, if they feel they're ready to make a decision, they'll jump right in. If the Board of Assessment Review requires another day, Monday, the 30th will be that day. So
and one of the things, I don't remember what the budget line is for our assessor, but now that we have more information than we did, for
Yeah.
instance, when we took up the Sideman abatement, just wonder, how are you feeling about that, projected line item in FY 26 budget for the assessor? You think
Well,
we've got enough
I
in
think-
there?
I think some of this stuff is gonna carry over into next year,
Yeah, good.
but I think I think if you don't have ample money in that line, you've got money in another line that you can pull from.
Yeah, okay, just in case,
Yeah,
we have to
absolutely.
use him more.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, thank you.
And hey, we only had appeals on 3 of the 8, so that's a fun thing.
Mhm.
In terms of other abatement updates, we will have 2 more properties on the next agenda on July 8th. And I believe that will close 2 owners, 3 properties, and that will close out our work at this stage. Again, we have a handful of properties we've sent on to Bill Van Tynen. Following the Sideman appeal,
Right.
he'll be working on scheduling the site visit or the visits to a handful of those properties. So we are rapidly approaching the end of what started in December.
Yes, okay.
Just Katie, for the record, folks have, after the tax bills, after we make commitments, folks have 185 days in order to, file for an abatement.
Yeah.
After that, when it's closed.
Right.
And in your packet, if there were no other questions on abatements, I provided a slew of items of correspondence. If there were any questions on those items, I'd be happy to take them. If not,
I have a question. On the
yes,
disability letter from the state, it's about our polling location.
Yes.
They say the doors, this was back in 2024, I think. So we hadn't installed the automatic openers.
we had not
There's-
installed the automatic openers at that stage, yes, because this was
Right.
based off the presidential election.
Exactly. So is it your understanding that we've satisfied that requirement? And the only other thing they're citing is that this handicap space isn't adequately providing for a van and marked that way.
That is my understanding, and I do have a call out to our road commissioner to talk about what it would take to get the spacing painted up there so we can make sure we check that box as well.
Good.
And I'm very thankful that they notified us of this deficiency from 2024, just after our municipal election where we had half of it correct, so. Were there any other questions on items of correspondence? If not, I just note that on the continuing items, there were none that came in over the last couple of weeks. And so I would turn this over to board members for their committee updates. And if Katie just wants to offer a few thoughts when we get to her on who she is and welcome aboard. I don't think you have many committee updates yet, but any personal ones you want to share too.
Okay, so I'm listed first and I'll start. The only thing I have to note is that the Solid Waste Committee has moved their meeting from the normal Thursday to Wednesday, the 9th, in order to make room for a public meeting that the Conservation Commission is sponsoring about the hydrology grant. And because it's in partnership with Arousec, there was only one date that was acceptable to make it happen. And we appreciate the flexibility of the solid waste folks to move over. I don't have more information about that meeting, about the grant meeting, but it is something that the committee is hoping will generate attendance because it'll be informative about the process. And we're trying to get a lot of people to return the survey about wells. It was handed out at town meeting. It's also available online, which they actually prefer because it will be easier to tabulate. So I guess I'm sure we can get you that information and you can spread the word widely, and we'll, Jessica's on publicity for that. So I'm surprised it hasn't made it to the town offices. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Bronwyn.
I covered June Jam, that was, happening in our last meeting. And, so it did occur, on the 13th, and it was, a large success. And I want to give a shout out to those volunteers, who helped make that a success, and, including, Terry, Taylor for the music, and, also, the principal and the school secretary. A couple of parents ended up in the dunk tank, so that was a great, beautiful day for the kids. Same day as graduation. I think I mentioned earlier that the Working Waterfront Committee has recently met. They met on June 23. They have wrapped up their work and their mission statement, their policy, and we're gonna later put it, determine a time in later this summer, whether it's July or August, for them to make a presentation to us. I don't think any of my other committees have met, but I do wanna note that rec committee meets on July 1st. And then, and they're gonna be, I think at least some of the folks on rec are gonna be helping with the 4th of July parade, sponsored by the GCC. So be sure for y'all to turn out and help celebrate Georgetown.
Thank you, Aria.
No updates. I was at
on-
the June Jam. It was very fun. Pam was there.
Yes,
making,
that's right. Oh, yeah, Pam
Pam's
was there.
there.
Thanks, Pam. Yeah.
Snow cones.
Snow cones.
Yep. I really enjoyed the Eros tour.
Oh, yes, that was
really
great.
fun.
Yes.
I also got to see Ben Polito's
Oh, good, yeah, I was there too.
thing at
Yeah.
the Historical Society. Happy to be here and engaged in this, and honored to have been voted in. Really, I feel like the school year just ended. My rentals have just kicked off on Saturday. I'm in like full summer mode, and jumping into this too. So
Yeah.
here we go.
Here we go.
Happy to be here.
And safe
good.
travels next week.
Yes.
Thank you. My mom is taking my sister and I and our 2 daughters, so a girls' trip to Austria.
Nice.
So excited. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great.
Were there any questions on the board member or committee updates?
There's a note
I
from Bob Trebona in the chat that the planning board is moving their next meeting and will meet on Tuesday, 1 July, instead of 2 July.
At 7:00.
And when that move was changed, we did notify Mr. Trebona that there is a recreation committee at 6. And I know that it will move very quickly, so the planning board can start at 7.
Yeah.
So we appreciate everyone's flexibility, and thank you for putting that in the chat, Bob. And for catching it, Bronwyn, because I did not see it. If there were no other questions, I'll do a quick update as town administrator, and then we'll jump into Mary's finance director update and the fire chief update. And just for background, Katie, Mary and the fire chief join us for updates at least once a month. During budget season, Mary's here with us a lot more.
Mhm.
So, my update, I just wanted to advise the board that Angie was supposed to be in a training today with the BMV, but there were some snafus on the BMV's end, and so Angie was only able to attend half of today's training, but will be full day tomorrow. So there will be, and we've put out some guidance on the website and on Facebook that in the month of July, folks just give the town office a little grace as we get folks trained up on all of the different state departments that the town clerk is answerable to. So I also wanted to flag that yesterday I met with the Conservation Commission, or a group of them, and the water study folks, focusing on some strategies on how to beef up responses on the well survey. Kathy Gravino, Jess Weller, Cheryl Swift, and I joined representatives from the proposed study. And again, Bronwyn put out information on the kickoff. The Conservation Commission also just wanted me to ask that anybody who is interested in joining their trail cleanup on the morning of Saturday, July 12th, it'll be at 9:30, and they're looking for volunteers to help clean up the trails headed towards the Round the Cove and the Central School. And so
Saturday, July 12 at what time?
9:30.
Okay, great.
And they'll meet at the trailhead, asking bring gloves, rakes, clippers, or weed whackers if you have them, and obviously some safety gear. Wear tick and mosquito repellent, and they don't have a rain date at this point. On July 3rd, next Thursday, we at the town office will be closed in observation of the July 4th on Friday. This was a notice that was sent out when we put out tax bills to everyone on holidays, so it was a surprise to me that this was coming up as I looked to my calendar, but this was put out well in advance. However, the shellfish lottery will still be going on as planned that day. It's been advertised. That'll be one of the only things Angie does before she's able to head off to camp. The boat building class at the Jet Central School donated a beautiful bench to the town office, and it really has improved the lobby here. Residents are even remarking on it, and I just wanted to note that everything on there, even the blacksmithing, was done as a part of the project. We do have a card here at the office for select board members to sign to thank the kids for their hard work. We had good news, some bad news. There was a dog bite on Blueberry Hill this past weekend. The Bath Animal Control Officer, who is our acting animal control officer, did respond, and that will work itself out in the process. But we don't have as many of those bites, but they do periodically happen, and the summer usually is when they kick off. And lastly, from the road commissioner, John isn't here with us tonight, but did want me to share with everyone that the first beach road will be getting paved end of this week, beginning of next week, weather permitting. So while he's not here with us, we still get to hear from John. So with that, if there are any questions, if not, I will turn this over to Mary.
On the dog bite, was it a serious injury that required, emergency medical or?
Not,
Okay,
Didn't require medical.
okay.
no, but it was not a good situation, so.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mary.
Okay, mine's very brief tonight. You folks all have received the May financials. We just did the last warrant for the fiscal year here. And then, we'll hold the period open, usually till at least the first warrant of August. For those bills that are, committed in June, but haven't been received or fulfilled, okay? So, and also in your packet, you should have received the warrant and payroll schedule for the next fiscal year. If there's any questions on that, holler. The audit, we're still awaiting word on the 2024 year-end audit. I had reviewed that in gross detail and then sent a note back to them. And they're busy right now, so they'll get back to me as soon as they can. I'm also working on the planning for this year's audit. So I'm uploading a lot of documents to them, and 90% of that's already done. And then the payroll, we have to update all of the sheets for the rates of pay for everybody. So I've done that for the fire department employees already and had Brian sign off. And I'll take all those down to Brahman and have her sign off as the chair of the select board. And then paid family medical leave, as you know, or may know, we the town covered paid family medical leave from January until June 30. So on July 1, effective July 1, the individual employees will have to be putting their portion of paid family medical leave, which is 0.5%. And then obviously, that's paid to the state on a quarterly basis. And then, so I'm updating sick and vacation time schedules. There was only one, employee that has excessive, we pay sick and vacation time, and you're allowed to have like 45 days of sick time, but you're only allowed to carry 2 years worth of vacation time, which is 20 days for us. And so I am over that by like 4 days, but as I explained to Tyler this afternoon, I'm gonna be taking some sick time and all that stuff, so we're just leaving it alone at this point. And that, I think, was about all for me. So unless anyone's got any questions for me, that's about it.
My question is probably back for Tyler. Where are we on the town report?
The town report, we did get all of the relevant documents, save pictures onto the website. I am still trying to get a time to get in and turn over all of those documents to Bath Print Shop. So the day I planned to do that last week turned out to be the day that I was with Bill Van Tynen. So it just has been, things keep popping up, but all of the relevant documents are on the website. I made sure they were up ahead of town meeting because residents in the past have remarked that, we'd like to see this ahead of town meeting, and that is up. So I desperately want it off of my desk, Bronwyn, so we can get 250 bound copies of the 300 pages here and find a spot for them. We are making progress, though I am rapidly understanding how we got this far. So.
And one other thing I meant to mention, I hope Brian will mention it anyway, but before your next, I believe it's before your next meeting, the fire department has their open house.
Right, that's right,
So that's coming right up as well.
July,
So,
yeah.
I think it's
July
July,
12 or 13.
I think it's the 13th.
Saturday, yeah.
I think it's Sunday, actually.
Well, Brian's gonna tell us for sure.
Right, so,
Sunday, what?
yeah. Yeah.
And,
Sunday.
and we teed him up good because he's up next
There
if
you
there are
go.
no other questions.
Hey guys.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah, just to go with what you guys were just talking about there, the open house will be Sunday, July 13th from 11 to 1 at the fire department, right next to the general store. So we hope everyone wants to come by and do a little meet and greet, see who's there, what we're doing. We'll have some popcorn, and we'll have some demonstrations, answer any questions. You guys check out the trucks and all the equipment we.
He's frozen. Literally.
I think they all. Oh, are you back?
There he goes.
Good. You froze up for a second, Brian.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where'd I leave off?
Popcorn.
Snacks,
Popcorn, yeah.
snacks.
Of course. Yes, there will be snacks. So I just want to encourage everyone who wants to come out to the fire department and do a little meet and greet on the 13th. We'll be glad to see everyone. So come on by.
Great.
But yeah, for the update, so right now we're at fire department's got 59 calls for service for the year so far. That's a bit below our same time last year. And I think that has to do, anecdotally, I think it has to, we didn't have any really big storms this winter or spring from January 1st on. So I think that can account for that, which is fine. I'm not saying we need it, but that may account for where we are. We're just a little bit below the last couple of years, but we're doing pretty well with that. So so let's see, we got any personnel changes. We got we're keeping up with our training for the new folks we took on this year. That's going well. Everyone's progressing pretty much where I expected it to. So that's going really nice, and everyone's been a good addition to the department. Really glad to have. We did have one member who's dropped off. Just don't have the time available right now to dedicate to the department. So they need to focus on what they're doing outside, which is perfectly acceptable. So we wish them well and thank them for all the time they did give us. So much appreciated. We do have one of our members, David Slotnick, who has just got his main paramedic license. So he's a new main paramedic. David is up here in the summertime. His family's got a house up here, so be around a lot in July and August, and otherwise lives down in the Boston area for the rest of the year. But we're really excited to have him with his fresh new paramedic license. So congratulations to him. We have gone ahead and have hired Marty Kinsman as one of our first per diem members. Marty's gonna be working about a day or two a week. Right now it'll be 2 days a week right now, but he'll be in the station, ready to respond if needed, doing truck checks, doing EMS inventory, station maintenance, cleaning, things like that. So if you see a new face around, it may be him. Marty is also a full-time employee with me up at Bath Fire Department. So, he might be around this summer a bit more, looking for a new housing situation. So maybe in Georgetown actually. So we may have him on the evenings and weekends too, if need be. So I've got another person who's contacted me for and dropped off an application for per diem. So working with them to get in for an interview, things like that. So we'll see where that goes. As far as the building, things are getting done kind of on a regular basis now, a little bit more, which has been nice. Marty just started last week, and so he'll be in, like I said, a day or two a week for foreseeable future right now. So that'll help with the regular maintenance stuff. When we got a couple of people looking into some longer term projects, larger projects, we got a couple things we got to look at, siding, some screens in the windows. And we got a couple structural things we got to look at because unfortunately the building's been backed into a few times. So we're looking into those, but it's nothing too major. Everything works fine, everything's safe, but does need to be addressed. So we're looking into doing that. All of our vehicles are in service right now. No major problem with those right now. Everything's working just like it should. We do have our vehicle replacement committee is working right now to gather information on replacement of our next vehicle, which will be ambulance 1, it looks like. So they're working on getting like a wish list together for what they're looking for in it. So we're gonna bring that together in the next couple months, and we're looking into the timeline, when we need to get an order in. We're going to look into prices, things like that, different manufacturers with the same spec sheet. And also, we're going to look into if we can remount the current box we have on the chassis we have right now. So not sure if that's going to be an option, mostly based on the age of the vehicle or age of the box, really. It might be too different. So again, we're going to look into it. That's an option as of right now until someone says it's not an option. We are going to be, we'll be discussing that more, I'm sure, in the future, because it's going to take some significant financial resources from the department as well as the town. And I'm sure we'll work together on that when we need to get there. So, and then also kind of vehicle train of things. We sat down last month as our department and discussed our boat situation. We had a boat donated to us years ago that we have had for quite a while. Unfortunately, it's been out of service for the last couple of years due to a variety of factors, mostly due to manpower. We haven't had the people who've had the time and the knowledge to do the upkeep and the maintenance and the training on it. With our rearranging of vehicles and whatnot, it's been down at Five Islands for a couple of years now, which just makes it a bit inconvenient to get to, even if we did have it serviced. So what we've come to the conclusion is that as of right now, Georgetown Fire Department doesn't have the ability to put that boat back into service or replace that boat with something new. It's mostly a manpower issue. We don't have the people right now who have the availability and the time to. We're barely meeting our EMS calls, our emergency medical calls. We had a fire alarm call come in just last week, a week before, actually, sorry, that we had one person respond to. That's not enough. So we are barely making the calls that we have already, never mind any kind of water emergencies. Thankfully, are very, very few. We only get called out 1 to 3 times a year, roughly on average, for anything involving the water, or it might need a boat. And by the time we could even respond, usually the situation is either past where we could handle it, or they've already been picked up, or whatever. So, long story short is, don't have the ability to do that right now. Mostly a manpower thing. Even if we were to put this same boat that we have, which doesn't really meet our needs, back in the service, it would be at a significant financial cost too. As everyone knows, boats are expensive, and very specialized boats that, like something we would need for the fire department, are even more expensive. So as of right now, it's just not something we have the ability to do right now. So I want to make sure that you all do that, and that the town knows that this is something that we are not really able to do right now at this point in time. So yeah, that's what we have with our current capabilities and staffing and whatnot. Maybe at some point in the future we can, I'd be glad to discuss this at any time, truly, but unless something significantly changes in the future, near future, this is where we're going to be right now. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or comments.
No, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Good to hear from you.
And with that, Bronwyn, if there were no other questions, I think the next item up was old business, and I really just wanted to give the board a chance to touch base about town meeting at a high level, what worked, what didn't, and where we can go next year. This is obviously a year out planning, so we don't need to dive in too far, but we don't want to lose the thoughts that by time Austria is over, I would totally forget about all the excitement at town meeting.
I'll defer to Bronwyn to start with.
Well, first of all, I thought that the discussion, the major discussion of the meeting revolved around the question of an easement at Blueberry Hill, and that it was lengthy, but I thought it was well managed and very civil. That people did not get impassioned or attack one another. They stuck to the issues pretty carefully. Having said that, of course, there's the major problem with microphones, which eventually, I guess, was resolved. Somebody came back in with a mic and said that it was, now working. I was somewhat surprised that there were no amendments offered to any budget lines, given the discussion before the meeting of changes Bill Webster had requested. And maybe it was just that too much time had already been spent in discussion and there was no appetite for further rumination. I was concerned about our moderator, who more or less collapsed at one point, and it was reassuring that it was Mike McDermott from the fire department, an I think he's studying EMT at this point, was talking with him and trying to get him settled. I think we should provide seating for the moderator, because it is a long time to stand and it's an indeterminate time to stand. And those are my thoughts. I don't know what other people have in way of observation.
No, it was good that we had Brian and Mike there to help the moderator. I do think that that we can have a discussion prior to next year's town meeting about I think there were some difficult interactions between the moderator and some of our townspeople And so, and I certainly got feedback on that, about the concerns there, and so, we can talk more about that as time approaches. It was I thought it was a robust discussion about the easement, and the vote was 62-26. As I recall, I think that's about right.
And 4 blanks.
And 4 blanks. And so, the one thing that I think the flow isn't, I'd like to work on flow a little bit, because I think that we could improve some of how it flows after a secret ballot vote. But again, these are just little things. Overall, I was happy with the turnout. I'd like to see more people, but I thought it was a good turnout. We're lucky it wasn't hot like today in the gym, but in any event, what do you think, Katie?
I thought it went really well. I think that you both have voiced a lot of things I was thinking. I really enjoyed the easement conversations. I thought that it was a great back and forth. If had the mic been working better, I think it would have been a little smoother for people.
Right.
The moderator was very straightforward and did a great job. But I was also concerned with his health there, and that he got back up and kept working was pretty impressive. Yeah, I thought it was a great turnout. Nice to see everybody so involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people, I feel like we should do a better job of counting
I meant to count
how many
Well, if it
people
was
actually
62
went.
to 26, that would
plus 4.
plus
There you
the
go.
4.
So
Yeah, but that's not-
66-26, about 100.
And then
But
we
there
still
were
had a few
people
folks from
in the room
non,
who were not eligible to vote.
Oh,
And-
correct, right.
And then there may have been people who just didn't go up and vote. And I think that it ought to be possible, because of the check-in process, to actually track the number of people that show up.
yeah.
Of course.
Therefore,
Yeah.
the number of seats that we need, if we chose to do any kind of social component before or after the meeting, that we would have an idea of how many people were potentially involved, that sort of thing. And also to compare from one year to another, the attendance. I was surprised that the vote was not higher, that the ballot votes were not higher. Because I thought that we typically had over 100 people. It certainly seemed like it at the meeting where the cannabis ordinance was on the docket.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe it's just that there wasn't anything terribly controversial, or I don't know whether, how much activity was there in the hallway before the meeting? I mean, I know the conservation people had a table. Were there other committees involved in any way?
No,
I don't
The
remember
water
seeing.
survey,
Water survey was there.
and there was one other
we,
survey.
It was all conservation.
we tasked the Conservation Commission with the coffee we brought as well, so I know that helped get a few folks to stop and get surveys, but they were the only ones in the hallway.
Right.
Mhm.
That
So
day
the-
was also a protest day, which may have affected
Oh, yeah.
turnout.
True,
Yeah.
although that was the one in Bath was considerably later, but may have gone to Portland or elsewhere.
Right.
Because the Working League always used to sell quilt raffle tickets there.
Hmm.
And we've
And-
had bake sales and stuff too.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
PTF
that,
had bake
yeah,
sales, yeah.
Yeah. Huh, okay.
And just for historical data, I know the clerk will have that, because you have to keep a copy of the check-in list.
Right.
So I can get those numbers, Bronwyn, I just don't have them right now, but I
That's-
like the way you're thinking about finding a good target on where we're at, so we can plan better for the future.
Yeah, and it was great, I appreciate that Dave Knobber and Ralph, were there and set us all up and broke us down. I mean, we had people helping, at the end with the chairs. And so that's always nice to see people jump in. And I know it has to be done a certain way. So it was nice to see some of our newer residents who've been here just a few years, taking part and in town meeting and offering comments as well. So.
Absolutely.
All right,
Well, these are some good debrief thoughts, and I know we will circle back to town meeting planning as it gets closer a year from now. So
sure.
old business completed. The first item of business under the new business would be the appointment of Angela Lee Mead as Registrar of Voters effective July 1. Just for what it's worth, the Registrar of Voters is a 2-year appointment that happens in the biennial election years after the election's over, so usually in December for 2 years to get you through. With Alex being done as town clerk and tax collector, she has decided to tender her resignation in this role as well. And historically, the clerk in Georgetown ends up the registrar.
So, you'd like us to move to appoint Angela Mead as Registrar of Voters effective July 1 for what term?
For the
For what-
remainder of Alex's unexpired term.
Okay, I so move.
Second?
Doesn't that expire on 12/31 of 2026?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor?
All right, that is unanimous. The
I'd also move that Angela Mead be the designated municipal authority, on the BMV, side of that clerk's job.
All right, so designate her as the BMV agent.
Yes.
All right, that was moved by Aria,
I'll second.
seconded by Katie. And so again, the town clerk in Georgetown has always been the motor vehicle agent, so this is just switching that over.
Right.
There will be a form that I will need to have myself sign, one select board member and Bronwyn as chair. It doesn't really delineate, but it only is a spot for 2, so for what that's worth.
I'll race you here. We'll see who gets their signature on this.
Well, the good news is I need one on each of these 2 forms.
Oh, there
The
you go.
Municipal
Fair.
authority level change. The motion that we're seeking is to move to new registration status. Currently, we're at heavy truck registrations. Alex and Amanda before her and clerks before that have gone through trainings to be able to register certain higher level trucks. We have a handful of companies in town, Savoy and Sons, Maine Moss, Burns Excavation. And so while we're lowering our status, the goal is to go back up to truck status when those trainings are available.
Right.
But there's a big learning curve on cars, so let's take the really complicated things off the plate, and the state would do it anyway if we said no, so.
So we need to vote.
A motion to move to new truck register, or new car registration status.
So
Did
moved.
we vote on appointing Angie Mead as the agent?
No, we could combine the 2.
Okay. I just want to dot all the i's and cross the t's for you.
Yes.
So we have one motion on the floor, and that's
Yep.
both of those things. All
Yes.
those in favor?
Perfect, 3-0. The next item on the agenda was reappointment of board and committee members with expiring terms. And I know there was some thoughts on this.
I'd like
Yeah.
to table this to
Yeah.
a future meeting. I think we need to have a chance to look at the full committee in each case and see who's up for reappointment and confer with the chair of those committees. But we do have some people have been on committees for a very long time, which is admirable and wonderful, and they know a lot. But at the same time, we need to get new people involved so that the institutional knowledge doesn't reside in just one person, and that the activity level is distributed. So I think we should take a closer look before we blanketly reappoint. And you also pointed out that you had it wrong for, it's not the planning board, but the
Financial advisory.
committee, where those people belong.
It's
And
also been. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry, Brian.
go ahead, Aria.
I was just gonna say, there's also, I've had people stopping me, and some at town meetings saying, I'm interested in this committee, I'm interested in this committee. How do I become more involved? And so I'd like to build in some time to allow people to, and I have referred them over to you, Tyler, for the volunteer application, which I assume is on our website.
Yes.
Needs to be updated, I'm sure, but in any event, we've talked about this in the past. And I think it gives a little bit of an opportunity for folks to come forward and, indicate their interest as well.
Yeah, Tyler and I also talked about trying to uh, keep a file, an open file of people who have expressed interest, so that we don't lose that into the morass of paper in the town office. So he'll be working on that, on a process for that. And the two things I'd like to update actually right away on the volunteer application are to request an email address, because it doesn't do that. And that's the way that we communicate most often with our committees. And to give to a question about what talents, skills, prior experience do you have that you'd like to use for the town's benefit? Because we often don't really know. We have a very qualified person, but we don't know that information about them. I think
Yeah.
we can do that very quickly.
And some people have a crossover of their skill set, so I'd like there to be a question if they're not selected for the committee that they've requested, are there other committees they're interested in? Because, we have we had this unexpected resignation from the planning board. And so, you never know when somebody's gonna.
Oh, yeah, planning board, but you also have someone on the appeals board who would like to move on to the planning board because appeals are
Yeah.
quiet. But we need
Right.
people on the appeals who will be able to deal with the appeal when it comes to them.
Right, so, there's lots to consider.
So there was a motion to table,
Second,
and that was seconded by Aria. The one question I have is that we're saying to a future meeting, after the vote on tabling, do we want to set a time on when, if folks want to get new applications in? Because I
Yes,
just don't
I'm
want to.
looking at the schedule here. We have
Yeah.
2 weeks
It
until the
almost
next.
seems like when the town is very involved during budget season and they show up at town meeting, could we have a deadline for those applications, maybe a few weeks out of after town meeting? And at town meeting, there could kind of be this bolstering of, these are the committees that need
Mhm.
volunteers.
I think that's a good idea.
And then it's a little bit more formalized and gives people a little more time.
yeah, and 10 more notice.
I think that's good for next year. In
For
terms
next
of
year.
this year,
Right.
I know our next select board meeting is July 8th, and then again on the 22nd, now that we've set those schedules. I just want to make sure with the holiday weekend and everything going on,
I would propose July 22nd.
that we table this until then.
Is that enough time, or is that too soon?
I
from
think
your
that's about,
perspective?
I don't think we should take more time, because
Okay,
we
great.
need these committees to be
Yeah.
able to function. And especially if reappointments, those people would like to know. And there may be some people who are associate or alternates that could be upgraded.
Right.
So how about if we put out a call for anyone who's interested in being more involved in a committee, or just in being involved in some way with town organization and effort, to submit an application by such and some date that is prior to the 22nd.
Yeah, let's look at, and that way we could all review those.
And I know that typically I set the agenda with the board chair the Thursday before a select board meeting. So ideally, if we're wanting folks to have time for review,
Maybe
the 19th would be the drop dead
I was-
latest.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest, maybe the 16th.
I was
That
looking at
goes
the
on much
15th.
better.
It's like
15th,
3 weeks from
16th.
now, and that's plenty. If you're interested.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
on the wrong one. Yes, the 15th. I was on the wrong month, Bronwyn. My apologies.
So
That's okay.
a couple of questions then. Could you please, besides putting it on the town's Facebook page, if you can get the shout out for volunteers, we can, you obviously have Jim Peavy's email, but he could get it out on the
Right.
friendly list.
Well, and I think the way that I would want to just have us word it to be careful is We don't wanna look like it, a lot of these folks that are up for
Oh, sure,
reappointment.
yes, of course,
We don't wanna say we're looking for
true.
everything, but
Yes,
folks
yes.
that have an interest, we can list what's there.
absolutely.
Cause I don't want it, and I know the
Yeah.
board doesn't wanna
Yeah,
look like
no,
we're
it's not our.
having hard elbows.
No, that's not our intent.
But we'll get a call out, and I was thinking the same thing, Jim Peavy's email list beats ours, so.
Yeah.
And also the Allison's list. Where she
Yeah, the
was
singing
going-
brooch, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so, applications and folks who, I mean, I would assume that the folks who are up for reappointment have already told their chairs whether or not they're interested.
Everybody on
On
this
this
list came from me from a committee chair that had spoken with them.
And
So, and said that they are ready to rock to go ahead, but I
Okay.
do totally understand the argument that, there were a lot of folks that didn't know these opportunities were coming,
Right,
so.
yeah. Okay, great, thank you. So
So-
we'll come back to this on the 22nd and applications will be due on the, what did we say, the 15th? And
Yes,
we'll review those prior to our meeting. Sounds good.
And we'll
and
look
we
at
haven't
the,
voted yet.
we'll look at the current makeup of each committee as we do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
I have a list of that, Brom, when I can get out very easily. I just have to make some tweaks to it now to show, very delineate the vacancies,
Yeah,
but that's something that won't be a problem.
okay. That's good.
All in favor?
yes, yes.
3-0, perfect. The next item of business is the adoption of a fee schedule for the ensuing year.
Yes, I move to adopt the fee schedule for which we had conducted a public hearing tonight.
I will second that.
All those in favor? Let's do it.
3-0.
I'd also move for approval of the MOU between the city of Bath and our Georgetown for EMS services.
I would second that.
The
Okay,
only thing that I would note, the difference between our previous agreement that was signed went to the end of this month. This one is going to be a 3-year agreement, so the rates have not changed. Just for what that's worth, though the city of Bath could give notice and change things as time goes on, but just flagging, it's not a 1-year, it's a 3-year.
Yeah.
which
I'm
is a
still-
good
I'm
thing.
still comfortable.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a motion? I think there was a motion. All those in
Yes.
favor?
3-0, perfect. We have 2 items that were added to the agenda. The first is the reappointment of our code enforcement officer, harbor master, shellfish warden, and EMA director, and we could move the slate.
I would move the slate for shellfish warden, EMA director, harbor master, and our codes enforcement officer to be reappointed.
And for names, just for folks, that's John Hens as shellfish warden, Mike McDermott as emergency management director, Mike Field as codes,
And Woody Hanstein.
and see, that was the one Woody Hanstein for harbor master. I knew it was Woody, I just had to remember the title.
Okay, did we have a second?
Yes, I will second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Unanimous. And the last item was an addition at the request of ARIA, which was to set a date for the Working Waterfront Work Group to come before the board.
I have a question about that because I'm sort of questioning how their work can be finished if it hasn't been defined. I thought there would be a report on the issues that they had identified before there was any suggestion of how to deal with those issues. I mean,
I think they did when Pat Burns came and spoke to us in a meeting and identified the issues, and then we developed this waterfront committee with about 8 stakeholders or so. That's what I thought had happened, and then at the first meeting, Mike Farina was elected the chair. And Pat Burns is, as I think, it's either Pat or Marissa serving as the vice chair. I haven't made all of their meetings, but they've come up with a mission statement and the makings of a policy, and they understand that an ordinance is, not necessarily on the table at this point. It's not a guarantee, but I think they would like to. Well, I know they would, because I was at their meeting yesterday. Would like to come back to the select board. They've talked with Tyler about it as well, to give a presentation about, where this process stands for them and answer any questions that the select board, may have about it.
And how long does a presentation take?
I would say maybe 10 minutes. I mean, it's long enough for, I think, for the questions you have, Bronwyn. Long enough for you to be able to ask those questions, anything that Katie may want to ask. Based on what they're saying. They've had a couple of meetings with realtors. They've talked with other folks who have some specific knowledge about these issues, including, of course, Pat Burns. Marissa McMahon's been a real contributor to it. So they put a lot of work into it, but they're here to explain the policy and the mission statement and to answer questions, again, that the board may have about it.
So.
So
I
I'd
would
say,
have been happy to hear from them at the last meeting. Do we have a reason they can't be at the next one?
I know that Mike Farina is setting sail literally on the 9th.
So the 8th would work.
So the 8th would work, the 22nd, I don't believe would.
I don't think it works, so I would suggest the 8th then, and we'll make certain,
I'd like to see
Yes.
some kind of an interim report at least, even if they
Sure.
didn't come in full force, just to know where it's going and what their thoughts are.
yes, they've drafted a document, and I'll ask them to send it over to Tyler for dissemination to the three of us.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah.
And we'll put them on the agenda for the 8th. Yeah,
Yes, we will. So with that, Bronwyn, the last item would be noting what we have for signature and then back to public comment, and we are done.
okay. We have a list of things that need signature, and I'll talk to you about them offline to arrange for mine. And folks that are there can sign whatever you have ready.
Perfect.
Okay, so, we're open for public comment. Is there any public that would like to comment?
Well, with that, then I'd move to adjourn, Bronwyn.
I think that's appropriate. I'm banging my gavel. I hope everybody has a cool breeze to go home to.
Okay, thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.